From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon and welcome to your MTN Noon News this Thursday. I'm Augusta McDonnell. Let's get right to our top story. A man is in custody after stabbing another man at Missoula's Hollywood Mobile Home Park on Wednesday morning. The arrest came hours after he barricaded himself inside a home, causing a standoff with SWAT officers. MTN's Emily Brown was on the scene and brings us these details.
A suspect is in custody after a standoff at the Hollywood trailer court. There was one victim. He actually showed me his stab wound. There was another witness in the house who was escorted out this morning by SWAT with her hands up.
Yeah, it was scary. I didn't know if they had guns on me or not, and they did.
Wednesday morning, Jackie Hager had just woken up at the Hollywood trailer court when she said an argument turned into a stabbing.
And we're having a dispute over a telephone. He got in the middle of it. He was glad that he was scared and ran, and then he stabbed him.
A man who was in the trailer was stabbed in the arm. After he got out, he said he called the police and received treatment at a hospital.
I don't know. I'm just going to come into a big mess probably. It's just not the place to stay anymore.
Missoula police and SWAT responded, asked residents to stay inside, and shut down a section of Burns Street. Police are a presence Greg Mergenhaller says he's used to seeing in the area.
A few years ago, there was a drive-by shooting here. My truck got shot 3 times. SWAT people in that yard over there, and they were aimed at a house over here. Just a couple months ago, there was a bearcat down there.
Along with many other residents, Mergenhaller wants the trailer court to get safer.
A lot of us do have cameras, and they have solved crimes, but cameras do not stop the crime.
The suspect was arrested midday after officers deployed noise flash distractions. The 50-year-old man is charged with assault with a weapon. A few minutes later, residents of the trailer park were ordered to evacuate as police made a larger perimeter due to a potential gas leak. The Missoula Fire Department responded and made sure there was no threat to the public. We'll keep you updated as we get more information. In Missoula, Emily Brown, MTN News.
Many Montanans know about a big event in Gallatin County, a community celebration where money is raised for local nonprofits. As MTN's Cassidy Powers learns, with recent uncertainty on federal funding, this year's Give Big could be the most vital one yet for many organizations in the Valley.
Nonprofits are a vital part of any community, but did you know that $34 million in federal funding is currently at risk for Gallatin County nonprofits alone? So let's talk to one of those organizations that could be affected.
This is a concern not only for Haven, but also so many other vital social services organizations in our community.
For more than 40 years, Haven has served the Gallatin Valley by supporting survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, and stalking. Erica Aites-Coyle, the executive director of Haven, tells me this nonprofit addresses a major issue that many in the Valley are unaware of.
For the past several years, we've been serving well over 1,200 survivors on an annual basis.
To help these survivors, Haven has relied heavily on federal funding. In fact, that's where 1/3 of Haven's budget for this upcoming fiscal year is expected to come from. But Erica tells me there's uncertainty with that expectation.
The main federal funder for domestic violence programs, which is called the Office on Violence Against Women, it has stopped accepting all new applications and said that they are, until further notice, on pause for increasing or renewing any grants.
Haven hasn't lost any federal funding yet, but Erica says concerns are still high because if federal funding is lost,
if it's 1/3 of our funding, if you translate that directly to the number of survivors we serve, that's about 400 survivors right here in Gallatin County whose lives would be affected in a very negative way.
Although Haven hasn't experienced a loss, some nonprofits have. Bridger Care, a Bozeman nonprofit that provides affordable reproductive and sexual health care services, tells me in a statement, annually their organization receives around $325,000 in federal funding through a federal grant called Title X. And that makes up 10% of their clinic budget. But as of April 1st, their federal funding has been frozen indefinitely, forcing them to to use private donations to keep services running while awaiting news from the administration. And they're not alone. One Valley Community Foundation, a nonprofit that addresses the needs of Gallatin Valley, conducted a survey of nonprofits in the area.
And they shared with us that what is at risk is about $34 million that nonprofit organizations within Gallatin County were anticipating that might be at risk if there was an elimination or reduction of federal funding.
Bridget Wilkinson is the president and CEO of One Valley. Her greatest fear, if federal funding disappears, so could our nonprofits.
75% of folks that responded to our survey said that they would not be able to exist in a year. So there is a lot at stake right now.
Which is why Bridget says their upcoming Give Big event, a day of giving back to local nonprofits, which has raised over $17.4 million in the last 10 years, this year's event is vital.
Due to the uncertainty and somewhat destabilization of our nonprofit sector right now, Give Big, I think, is more important than ever. We just ask that people show up, whether it's a gift of $5 to $500. All of those gifts matter collectively when we do it together.
For more information on Give Big, which starts May 1st, visit our website. In Bozeman, Cassidy Powers, MTN News.
Little higher elevation snow, especially into the bighorns of northern Wyoming, southern Montana. Beartooth's off into the eastern plains. Even some snow showers there as we start looking extreme eastern Montana. Brought us over towards the Dakotas here. First thing this morning, started to see those showers develop. The rest of the state is fairly quiet at this point, although we are seeing some breezy periods across a widespread area. As far as precipitation goes at this point, you can see through northern Wyoming up to about 0.2 of an inch in several locations. We're going to see more out of this weather system here in the short term. As we get through the rest of the day, we'll look for those showers to taper off, but breezy conditions the next couple of days. And after a brief warm up, even some heavier rain. Details coming up.
Now let's take a look at our headlines in today's leading look. First, a Shepherd woman admitted Wednesday to shooting a man to death. 23-year-old Kennedy Rose Agner pleaded guilty to a charge of deliberate homicide in Yellowstone County District Court for the death of Quade Fluckiger. In court, Agner admitted that she shot the victim in the head with a pistol inside a home on Chicago Road on February 28th of 2024. A plea agreement states prosecutors will recommend a prison term of 55 years at a sentencing hearing date to be set at a later date, and a second felony charge of tampering with evidence will be dismissed. Prosecutors will also not seek a weapons enhancement as part of that agreement. And Governor Greg Gianforte traveled to the Flathead Wednesday to talk about priorities before the current legislative session ends. He discussed his priority to deliver permanent property and income tax relief. The governor did cross off one box on his to-do list during his press conference: increasing starting teacher pay. House Bill 252, known as the STARS Act, passed its final vote in the Senate on Tuesday, which directs $100 million towards raising starting teacher pay in Montana's schools. Governor Gianforte also actively recruiting more gun manufacturers to move to Montana. This after the state of Colorado recently enacted tighter gun laws restricting firearms businesses in the state. Gianforte is now cold calling some of those companies, hoping to entice them to move to Montana. Our Matt Carmack dives deeper into his plan, one that also has some critics.
My question for you is simple. Do you want to move back to America?
The message couldn't be more clear. Montana is open for business, specifically firearms manufacturers discouraged by new sweeping gun laws in Colorado.
It's going to be devastating to our industry in general.
Michael Meyer is the CEO of M&M Industries, a gun manufacturer now considering a move to Montana after receiving a call from Governor Greg Gianforte, and he's not alone.
It's a nice touch. I mean, it's nice to know that somebody would actually want your legal, profitable business in their state.
Both Colorado gun manufacturers are outraged by Senate Bill 3, one of the most restrictive gun regulations ever adopted in that state. The bill would ban the manufacture of certain firearms in Colorado and drastically restrict sales.
It makes no sense to be punishing us, the actual manufacturers of the products, over the end use of something that somebody was careless on.
This has just been a long line of anti-firearms bills, anti-business bills, the tax situation.
But not all Montanans were on board for that decision. Like Ion Young, a local lead for the national organization Moms Demand Action.
Assault weapons are exceptionally powerful, dangerous deadly weapons, and they shoot more bullets at a faster rate than a manual action rifle.
Young supports legislation like Senate Bill 3, which is aimed at reducing mass shootings and saving lives. The bill prohibits guns with detachable ammunition magazines.
I can imagine that they are disappointed. Absolutely, I understand that about their business. They cannot manufacture assault weapons in Colorado, but they can still manufacture other weapons.
But for gun manufacturing companies like M&M Industries or Phoenix Weaponry, the new law is enough to motivate them to move, calling Governor Gianforte's invitation the icing on the cake.
Come on home to America, right here in Montana.
So we're trying to find a good home, someplace that we're not being put out of business constantly.
In Billings, Matt Carmack, MTN News.
And it's a race to the finish at the Montana legislature with just 10 working days left in this 69th session, including today. Property tax relief is still one of the biggest open questions, not only for lawmakers, but all Montanans. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian provides a clearer picture of what a final plan could look like as two major proposals move forward.
On Tuesday evening, the House and Senate each spent well over an hour debating a bill for property tax reform. Both bills passed initial votes, and as currently written, they have several differences but share an underlying structure.
I think we're getting to a spot where we've got a product that the vast majority of the legislature can agree on.
The House voted 80-20 Tuesday evening to advance Senate Bill 524, which House Majority Leader Steve Fitzpatrick called the flagship bill. Meanwhile, the Senate narrowly endorsed House Bill 231 on a 26-24 vote, after initially voting it down last week.
We're approaching this from both chambers, and at this point it's a little hard to predict what the final outcome is going to be.
Both bills now introduce homestead tax rates that would give a tax advantage to Montanans' primary residences, long-term rentals, and small commercial properties. And both have a one-time rebate of up to $400 for this year. But there are differences. SB 542 would institute a different rate system for the first year because it might be too late to get homestead rates in place this year. It can be difficult to analyze exactly how a property tax bill would affect an individual property owner. Each type of property has a tax rate. That rate multiplied by the property's assessed value is the taxable value, and the taxable value multiplied by the mill rate gives the annual tax. If a bill reduces the tax rate, local governments might adjust their mills to keep their revenue steady. So cutting the residential rate in half doesn't necessarily translate to a 50% cut in taxes. Fitzpatrick said a Department of Revenue model estimated the homestead rates could lead to around a 30% tax reduction for an average Montanan's primary home. But they would shift some of the tax burden to other types of property. Groups led by the Montana Chamber of Commerce sent a letter to lawmakers expressing concern about how SB 542 would affect businesses, farms, and ranches. But supporters of these bills say some of those taxpayers saw their property taxes fall in recent years. SB 542 and HB 231 will each need to pass a final vote in their current chamber before going over to the other. If that chamber votes to accept the current version, the bill could be on its way to the governor fast. If not, there'll have to be a conference committee to sort out the differences. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.